The movie begins in a quiet riverside where Sergei Aleshkov managed to climb up a tree and, after reaching the top, brags to his mom and older brother. Suddenly, the peace is disturbed when a plane makes a dive on their direction. Sergei then grabs his slingshot and imagines to hit the plane with piney cones and destroying them. It was actually a dream, and Sergei wakes up in the middle of the night when he hears a loud bang on the door. A lady barges in and is relieved to see the young boy alive. She tries to convince Sergei to come with her and act as his son, since his mom and older brother were killed along with the partisans. But it was too late. Crop patrols are on the way to the house. The lady forces Sergei to escape through the window and run. As he runs away, many of the houses in the village are burned down. Sergei becomes disoriented in the foggy, gloomy woodland. He goes to the river in the morning to drink some water, and when he finishes, he hears some men talking in a foreign tongue. Just as 3 Nazi soldiers are about to cross the river, he dashes to the nearest tree to hide. After that, the Germans light a fire to prepare some meal. Even though Sergei notices a snake over his head, he is able to remain silent until the Nazis depart. Subsequently, Sergei keeps going through the woodland. He hadn't eaten in days, so when he came upon some berries on the ground, he grabbed them without hesitation. The small youngster is startled when he hears explosions in the background. Subsequently, he begins to see things and develops paranoia about someone watching him from behind. However, Sergei takes a proud stance and exclaims from behind him, "I have a rifle of a stick." Though he keeps going, fatigue eventually catches up to him. He is discovered and brought to base by a couple of Russian scouts the following day. Sergei is consoled by Commander Kuznetsov, who is in control of that flank of the battle, who tells him they are on the same side. Sergei, in response, introduces himself and shakes the commander's hand like how a much older person would. Everyone feels for the injured young boy and attends to him, giving him some grub and something to drink. Later, a medic named Katya applies medicine to Sergei's wounds. Each time she rubs some, he winces in pain, and so Katya agrees to draw a tank to distract and please him. When the kid starts asking questions about the front, some of the injured soldier beside him answers him politely. Soon, Kuznetsov goes to the makeshift hospital to see the condition of his men and talk with Sergei. The innocent child shares in detail what he has to go through, then starts taking interest on the commander's medals and pistol. After given the chance to hold the commander's pistol, he then shows off the tank on his stomach. Moments later, when the commander is on the way to the front lines, Katya asks the commander's permission if they can let the child stay. She explains that they will all take care of him, and besides, with no family to go back to, he'll end up in an orphanage. But the commander declines the request, stating that the front lines isn't a place for a child. Some of the soldiers visit Sergei in the makeshift hospital from time to time. On one occasion, they even brought him a binocular and some apples as a present. One evening, Katya shares to her fellow nurse that she can't sleep because she keeps on worrying and thinking that she'll never see Sergei again if they send him away. But she wasn't alone. Some of the soldiers feel the same. They all keep on requesting the commander to let the boy stay, since many of them grown attached to Sergei, and also he keeps their morale up. But the commander insists the boy should leave, and for good reasons. War isn't a place for a child. The next day, the Germans advance, but the Russians manage to hold off. After the intense firefight, a soldier awaits to escort the child to the orphanage. Kuznetsov takes a seat and has a hard time breaking the news. Sergei realizes what's up and starts tearing up. The commander then hands the child a wooden pistol, and in gratitude, Sergei hugs him tight. The commander couldn't bear to let go of the child and changes his mind. He then asks Sergei if he wanted to be his son. And of course, the child answered yes. That night, the soldiers excitedly gathered to plan on how to make Sergei's military uniform. Meanwhile, Sergei dreams of a memory from the past before the war, the whole family going about their day in a carriage. By morning, the commander wakes Sergei and surprises him with the uniform. Not soon after wearing them, Sergei runs around the camp happily, and the soldiers were just as happy to see the enthusiastic kid. But then, planes are seen overhead. The German bombardments kills the mood. The Russian springs into action and takes Sergei into a foxhole in hopes of keeping him safe. After the bombing, the number of wounded increases. Sergei tries to look for the commander and Katya amidst the chaos, but since he couldn't find them, he tries to be useful by giving water to the thirsty soldiers. While helping out, one of the soldiers requests Sergei to read a letter since he couldn't see. Sergei couldn't read either and makes up a story about a cow. The blind soldier voices out that he doesn't have a cow, but the other injured soldier let him continue and laugh it off. Eventually, other injured soldiers let the young child read their letters as well. Later, Kuznetsov sees Sergei sleeping on Katya's lap. The commander clearly has feelings for the beautiful nurse and tries to confess his feelings but gets tongue-tied. Then Sergei wakes up, prompting the commander to abort the confession mission for another day. The same day, Sergei pretends to shave. Two soldiers approach him and ask if it was for a date, but Sergei simply replied that soldiers doesn't go to dates. The following day, Sergei asks if his father, the commander, if he has any errands for him. Kuznetsov orders him to deliver the letters to the front lines. Without hesitation, the young boy gets the letters and hands them over to the soldiers, easing the tension. Subsequently, while playing around with his binoculars, he spots a suspicious leg among the hay. He then runs over to the soldiers having a meal to report it. At first, the soldiers didn't believe him, but they decide to check it out anyway. Sergei leads the way and instructs them where to find the enemies. Turns out he was right. There were two Kroats hiding by the hay. The Germans tries to fight back, but the Russian overpowers them. During the confrontation, Sergei recovers a radio. Later, Kuznetsov learned of Sergei's achievement from his right-hand man. The commander is even more amazed of the child because Sergei didn't even utter a word about it. When the child enters the room, Kuznetsov excitedly shows Sergei his sealed adoption papers, making the commander his legal father. He then insists that they should share the wonderful news to Katya. Sergei drags his father towards the woods and into the riverbank. But when they arrive, Katya is talking to another man with flowers in her hand. This gave Kuznetsov the wrong idea that she was into another man, when in fact the man with Katya was actually courting her, but she turned him down. Sergei runs over to Katya, saving her from the awkward moment with the man, and tells her that Kuznetsov is nearby, but when they turned around, the commander was no longer there. Not soon after, another firefight broke out. Sergei tries to be involved in the front lines unnecessarily by delivering bullets. An old soldier tries to convince Sergei to get to safety, but the young child is rather stubborn. And so the old man gives an order instead, and like a true soldier, Sergei follows the command and heads to safety. When Sergei reaches the commander's dugout, he notices that they were having a hard time communicating to HQ. One of the soldiers notifies the commander that the phone lines might have been cut off. Sergei hears this and follows the line until he gets to a wounded soldier. Despite the danger, Sergei crawls towards the man and asks how to connect the lines. The soldier then teaches the young child before he breathes his last. After successfully connecting the lines, Kuznetsov was able to reach HQ and call for reinforcements. Later that night, an older soldier talks to Sergei about the star constellations in the night sky. Somehow, it leads to a conversation about love. The naive child asks what's love like, and the old man explains that it's like a person is ill when apart from a loved one. The very next day, Sergei runs over to Katya in the makeshift hospital and tells her that the commander is ill and has a head time sleeping. Immediately, Katya runs over to the commander's place to help him. Meanwhile, Sergei slips out. Katya wakes Kuznetsov and asks how he was feeling. Kuznetsov then composes himself, replies that there's nothing wrong with him, and realizes that it was Sergei's little ploy to get them together. After hearing that the commander's fine, Katya storms out, but Kuznetsov goes after her. Using a branch in hand, Sergei ascends a tree fort in the brief peace. Through his binoculars, he surveys the camp and spots a dog. He salutes the dog trainer and then rushes up to pet them. When he wants to ride the sled, the person in charge allows the small lad a chance. The dogs soon spot a cat and begin to chase it. When one of the troops notices that Sergei is riding toward a minefield, he follows him on a tricycle. Fortunately, the soldier arrives just in time, barricades the path, and gives Sergei a hug. At the same time, the commander catches up to Katya. He then tries to confess, but words aren't coming out right. But Katya knew what he was trying to say, and before she could give her reply, a soldier breaks the moment with letters from up top. After reading the letter, Kuznetsov tells Katya that they're setting off. The regiment marches towards their next assignment the following day, exactly as instructed. When they arrive in a village, the commander and Sergei are invited inside a house, where the Sergei notices an odd frame on the floor. A man casually tells him that it's from a German air bomb that didn't explode, so he just patched it up. When the officers hear this, they tell everyone to leave the house so they can defuse the bomb, while the men go about their work, and Sergei plays with the other kids in the neighborhood by petting a puppy. The soldiers succeeded in removing the bomb from the house and proceeded to march towards their destination. However, while traveling, the vehicle they were riding in struck a mine, killing Kuznetsov's right-hand man instantly. Fortunately, Sergei and the commander escaped with minor injuries. Soon after they arrived at their destination, Kuznetsov met with the general to give his report. After a brief exchange, the general was impressed by the young boy's sharp mind and soldierly demeanor. The next day, the Kuznetsov regiment was awarded the honor of carrying the Guard's banner, and the general pinned a badge on Sergei's uniform. The commander Sergei hurries to the soldiers and tells them about Kuznetsov's plight as the entire company smiles at the young child as he marches. A few moments later, the Russians are attacked and artillery fire hits the trenches, burying the boy. After that, the soldiers move in that direction to free their captain from the wreckage. After Kuznetsov escapes the encounter, the film concludes with the unit marching off to an unidentified place. According to a narration, Sergei's fame as the youngest soldier endures because the division becomes his family and supports him through every conflict, even accompanying him in the Battle of Stalingrad and traveling as far as Poland. Thanks for watching.